Good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so glad we have you here with us this Sunday morning. So welcome to Union Street Baptist Church. If this is your first or second time with us, we want to especially welcome you. There's a Connect card in the seat in front of you. Feel free to fill that out, drop it off at our office, and we'd love to connect with you in that way. To get started today, we're going to do some announcements. The first thing we're actually going to do for announcements is we're going to show a little video for something that is coming up soon. So I'm going to pass it over to these guys, and they're going to show that now.
After 2 summers abroad in England, Jelena and Cam are back and better than ever.
Jelena, do you remember the days when we worked on the railway?
I sure do.
Oh, man.
I sure miss VBS. That was such a good time 2 years ago.
2 years? Man, wasn't that at Union Street?
That sure was at Union Street.
Well, I miss it there.
Me too.
When all of a sudden,
You guys!
Who's that?
Look what came in the mail after your vacation. It's from, am I reading this right? The FBI.
I don't know nothing about the FBI now.
The FBI!
Jelena!
Ah!
Oh my goodness. Read it out now. Read it out.
That's an invite to go back to Union Street Church for VBS.
No way!
Yeah!
Oh my God!
We get to go to the moon this year.
Oh my
The moon!
The moon! We're going to the moon!
if you're between kindergarten and grade 5, we want to invite you out to our stellar VBS, which will be happening August 19th to 23rd here at Union Street Baptist Church. To register for VBS, you can go to our website at usabc.ca. And for more information on VBS, please feel free to contact Pastor Dan. We're looking forward to exploring the stars and shining God's light with you all very soon.
Let's give a round of applause for our summer students. Great job, good performance. So VBS is coming up. It's just around the corner now that we're into August. VBS will be happening August 19th to 23rd. We're really excited about it. This year we're doing Stellar, so it's a space-themed VBS. In a couple weeks, we're going to get everything laid out here, and it's going to look like we're in the solar system, so it's going to be very fun. We're looking forward to it. If you're interested in registering or volunteering for that, feel free to come talk to me about it. Love to have that conversation with you. We're always looking for more help for that type of stuff. So again, that's coming up in a few weeks. This week coming up, we're going to have our final one of our day camps. So we've already done cooking and science. This week coming up, it's art camp. So if you could just continue to be in prayer as we do that final camp there. It's going to be August 6th to 8th, so Tuesday to Thursday. It's going to be 9:30 to 11:30, just like all of our other camps. There's still time to register. If you haven't registered yet, feel free to do that. There's still some space. And if you want any more information about it, or if you'd like to volunteer, anything like that, again, just come talk to me about that. And then finally, to finish some announcements, just a few things that are going on this week coming up outside of that. So on Tuesday, we're going to be having our Nerf night here at the youth group. So this is going to be a really fun time. We are going to be shooting each other with guns. We're going to be shooting targets with guns. My friend Jeremy's coming, and he's bringing a lot of souped-up Nerf guns that we're not going to be shooting at the kids, but we're going to be shooting at targets. So it's going to be a really good time. That's happening this Tuesday. It's going to be happening during youth group, but it's actually from 6 to 8 p.m. this Tuesday. So that's Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m. So if you're planning on coming to youth group for 7, don't come at 7, come at 6, because we're going to be starting the night off at 6 p.m. All right? Wednesday, I mentioned this last week, we're going to be having our golf tourney. I'm very excited about it. I'm getting a trophy and everything for it. So you really want to sign up for this. Big prize available. It's going to be happening Wednesday, August 7th. We're going to be meeting at the St. Stephen Golf Course. Our tee time's at 2, so if you can show up a little bit earlier than 2 on Wednesday, that would be good. If you want to register for that, there's still space available. Just come talk to me about that. It's going to be a fun afternoon, so I recommend signing up for that. And then finally, on Thursday, normally we have our walk groups on Thursday. We've been doing that throughout the summer. This week, we're actually taking the week off. There won't be any walk group this week, but we will be back on August 15th. And then I had one final shout out as well. This is related to VBS, and this is from Donna, so shout out Donna. She's helping out with craft, and she wants people, if you have these recyclables at your house, bring them in. So we're looking for pop bottles, like 2-liter pop bottles, and paper towel and toilet paper rolls. So if you have 2-liter pop bottles, paper towel, or toilet paper rolls in your house, please bring them in. We would use them. All right, that's going to do it for announcements. There's other stuff that's happening. Feel free to check your bulletin to see more info on that. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to pass it over to the worship team. So let's bow our heads, close our eyes, and let's talk to God. Dear God, we just thank you for this morning. God, we just thank you just for all the things going on here at church. God, it's exciting. God, we just pray that, as always, your hand would be in all the things that we're doing here at Union Street, and that you would just continue to guide our steps. God, we thank you for our children and our children's leaders, and as they're heading out after this, just pray that you would be with them this morning. Just guide them and teach them what you want them to know. God, we also just thank you for the offering that comes in this morning, God. God, we thank you for those funds that just go towards your kingdom work here at the church. God, we just pray that, again, you would just guide us as we use those. God, we just thank you again for this morning. Pray that you be with us now as we worship. We thank you and praise you. In your name, amen. So as I mentioned, our kids are going to head over now. So if you're in kindergarten to grade 5, you can go meet up at the door, and you guys are going to head over now for your time.
So good morning to everyone here. I'm really glad that Dan had quite a bit of announcements because my cheeks hurt from laughing so much during that video. Oh my soul, I was like, oh, my cheeks actually hurt. Anyway, yes, welcome to Union Street. We have some nice voices this morning for you, and Sarah on the guitar, so that's wonderful, and Maria on the piano, of course. Yeah, what a blessing it is to have multi-talented people, so it's awesome. If you could stand with us, and we will start our worship with an old hymn. Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. And sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. And sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When through the wood and forest glades I wander and hear the birds sing sweetly in the trees, and I look down from lofty mountain grandeur and hear the brook and feel the gentle breeze. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When Christ shall come with shout of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart. Then I shall bow in humble adoration and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Love so undeniable, I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable, I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, love. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. How great the chasm that lay between us. How high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such
such boundless grace. The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body begins to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Jesus, yours is the victory. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Oh God, you are my living hope.
Be seated.
Good morning, everybody. For the service, I'm gonna grab the water. I saw there's an iced coffee up here, but I'm not sure how old it is, so I'm just gonna leave that there and have my water instead. Okay, well, then we're definitely not gonna drink it. Good morning, everybody. So today we're gonna continue on in our series on the fruit of the Spirit, and today we're gonna be looking at the fruits of kindness and goodness. And to start, what we're going to do is we'll be reading what I think is probably one of the most well-known stories about kindness in the Bible. And that's the story of the Good Samaritan. So, if you have your Bibles with you, you You can turn with me to Luke 10, 25 to 37. The words will be up on the screen as well if you don't. Okay, so Luke 10, 25 to 37. So on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this, and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself. So he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell in the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." So let's pray. Dear God, we just thank you for today. God, as we were singing earlier, we know you are a good, good Father. God, as we come before you now, we just pray that we would experience that goodness and that we would learn more about how we can grow the fruits of kindness and goodness, God. So God, we just thank you for these things, and we pray these things. In your name, amen. So when I was beginning to write this sermon on kindness and goodness, what I really wanted us to focus on was to clearly define what these terms mean in a practical sense. Because these terms, particularly goodness, seem simple, yet hard at the same time to define. I think part of the reason is we've made it too simple almost. The word good now is just kind of a catch-all word that we use to describe a multitude of things. Good is the word we use when we don't have a better adjective to describe something. Good sounds like 3 out of 5 stars on Google. Maybe it was good, but not great. Maybe somebody's shown you something before, and maybe disinterestedly you said, "Wow, that's really good." We use good to describe the food, the weather, how our favorite sport team is doing, or a long list of other things. So good and goodness seems so wide-ranging. So how do we begin to define what seems to be such a general term? So first, we must understand that the fruit of goodness goes much deeper than something that is good. Goodness is best displayed to us by God himself. After the service, or after I'm done speaking, we're going to sing a song called "Goodness of God." And in the chorus of that song, most of you are probably pretty familiar with it, but in the chorus of that song, we sing, "All my life you have been faithful." So God's goodness is characterized by his faithfulness to us, as he never leaves us or forsakes us. God will always take care of us and love us. And that is what makes up so much of God's goodness. To define goodness in a Christian context, then, we could say that goodness is us attempting to be faithful and obedient to God with how we live, just like he is faithful to us. So I'll just say that again. In a Christian context, goodness is us attempting to be faithful and obedient to God with how we live. Goodness is us trying to live as close as we can to how we believe God calls us to in his word. Looking at kindness now, we can say then that kindness is when we practice that goodness by helping someone without expecting anything good to happen to us. Remember last week we talked about peace and patience and the relationship between those two, where patience is really us practicing our peace. So in the same way, kindness is us practicing our goodness. Kindness has this selfless nature where in order for something to be truly kind, we do it without anticipating anything in return. So there's this guy on TikTok I've seen a few times, and what he'll do is he'll go to people's houses and he just mows their lawn for free. He'll look at somebody who has a really bad lawn, who really needs some help, and he'll just go and mow their lawn for free. And in some of the videos, the people that he's mowing the lawns for will run out on their yard to meet him and explain to him how they didn't ask for him to mow their lawn or that they're going to pay him. The mood changes very quickly when he tells them that he's just doing it for free, right? But this is a great example of kindness. And while we may still end up getting something at the end of it, our motivation for our kindness has to come from the heart. Otherwise, it's not really kindness. Let's go back to our story of the Good Samaritan for a second. The story ends with the Good Samaritan leaving the man he had found at the inn, promising to return and pay any extra expenses that may come up. The Samaritan isn't waiting for the person he helped to pay him back. He's not looming over the man's bed, checking his watch, tapping his foot, and waiting impatiently for something in return. Because that's not kindness. Look what Jesus says in Luke chapter 6, verse 35. He says, "But love your enemies and do good, and lend expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you'll be sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil." This verse calls us to do good or to be kind because, remember, kindness is goodness in practice. So it's calling us to do good or to be kind. Kindness is when we live out that goodness. But it calls us to do good without expecting. We're called to be kind simply because that is what we're called to do. And we're not called to be kind to just the people we like. That kind of kindness is pretty easy to do. It's not hard to be kind to your grandmother that just baked you a bunch of cookies. Look what the end of verse 35 in Luke 6 says. "For he is kind to the ungrateful, and to the evil." We serve a God who prayed for the people who were killing him. In the same way, we are called to be kind to the people that cut us off in traffic, or that person who buttered their way to the front of the line at the self-checkout. Our enemies seem to be a lot smaller, but Consider again the story we read earlier of the Good Samaritan. And so one of the underlying themes in that story is that the Jewish people and the Samaritan people do not get along well with one another. Before the Samaritan shows up, there's two other people that are there. There is the priest, who is obviously one of the high people in the temple, and the Levite, who would also serve a priestly role traditionally in Old Testament, right? So these are people that should be helping, but they just walk right by. And it ends up, it's the Samaritan who actually stops and helps this man. So one of the underlying themes in this story is that the Jewish people and the Samaritan people do not get along well with one another. They are at ends over religious issues and don't see eye to eye, and they do not have a good relationship. Because of this, it's ironic that the only person who helps the Jewish man is the Good Samaritan. When it comes to kindness, we are called to put aside our personal biases and intentionally seek out ways in which we can help our neighbor. So kindness is all about putting the needs of others above our own. But we also have to be careful. I know some people who their inclination is they just always go all out for others, but at the cost of themselves. It's important to take care of us too. So I remember back in the day, I went to Awana. Does anyone know what Awana is? Yeah, I was an Awana kid, so I know a lot. I know my books of the Bible well. But another thing we learned at Awana was this acronym called JOY. And so JOY stood for Jesus, others, and then you. And while we may find ourselves at the last of that list, we are still definitely on that list. So we need to make sure that we are in a good place to be kind to others, and it's vital to sustainable kindness. We see Jesus different times throughout the New Testament taking personal time for himself. Even Jesus needed a break. So while being kind to others, we need to make sure to take that time to also be kind to ourselves. Where else can we go in the Bible to find kindness and goodness? Well, as is the case with all our other fruits, Jesus is the best example of both kindness and goodness in the Bible. The majority of the Gospels are filled by Jesus helping others without anticipating anything in return. Whether it's healing lepers, feeding 5,000 people, or dying for all of our sins, Jesus is constantly displaying the importance of kindness. He does this so much, in fact, that John finishes his gospel by saying, Jesus also did many other things. If they were all written down, I suppose the whole world could not contain the books that would be written. So who here's an avid reader? Okay. So I used to be, then I hit school, and then I just kept reading for school, and then I just got tired of it. But hopefully it'll come back. But when I read this, I think of the Lord of the Rings books. You know, they're really big, and there's a lot of them. Well, it'd be like probably 2 million copies of Lord of the Ring books. But when John says this at the end of his book, it shows that Jesus was always looking out for other people, right? He wasn't taking, the easy route out. He did take time for himself, but he did always see people's needs. Another popular passage in the Bible that talks about kindness and goodness comes to us from Psalm 23. So this is a very familiar passage. So many of you are probably familiar with the last verse of this psalm, where David writes, "Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." So while we may be familiar with this verse, I think there are a couple different ways that we can interpret that. So this psalm is all about provision. God is walking with David through the valley of the shadow of death. God is overflowing David's cup, even in the presence of his enemies. And then it concludes with the verse that we just read. While it makes sense to read it as God's goodness or God's provision will follow David, I think we can also read this another way. David has firsthand experience with the goodness of God, and that has made a life-changing impact on him. And while David expresses that this will continue throughout his life, we can also assume that the goodness God showed to David will also be displayed by David to those around him. The goodness of God will follow David through David's kindness and goodness shown to others. Have you experienced the goodness of God? And if you feel like you have, how do you show that to the people around you? Again, God has given us the perfect example of goodness. Kindness begins when we choose to mirror that goodness to those around us. So we talked about practicality, and I like to be very practical when approaching things like this. So how do we practice kindness? As we begin talking about this, I found a quote that I really like that I think is important for us to talk about. It's from an author named Khalil Gibran, and he states, "The smallest act of kindness is worth more than the greatest intention." So I'll say that again. So the smallest act of kindness is worth more than the greatest intention. So thankfully, our kindness doesn't need an elaborate plan, because kindness starts with just putting forth an effort. It goes beyond the realm of thinking about something and enters into the realm of doing something for others. Kindness can seem like such a simple concept, but it can be hard to move from idea to action, especially if you're an overthinker like me. I'm all about making elaborate plans, and I'll take a deep dive on each and every small detail, and sometimes miss out on the big picture because of it. Thankfully, we're not called to fret over how we are kind, but we are first and foremost called to simply put out an effort. We're called to extend a hand where we see the need for one. We don't need to think of the perfect plan before we're kind to someone. We are just simply called to be kind. Another great thing about kindness is we never can truly know what might happen when we choose to be kind. One popular trend that's been around for a while now is called paying it forward. And this is where someone will pay for the person behind them, usually in a line at like a restaurant, for example. And the idea with this trend is that the person who has been paid for will then pay for the person behind them and continue on that chain. When we choose to show kindness to others, our hope, again, should not be that we receive anything in return, but rather that the act of kindness we do will inspire those we've shown kindness to pay it forward, so to speak. Acts of kindness also stick with people. Think for a second about how someone may have helped you at some point in your life. And these moments are so memorable because kindness leaves a lasting impact. Again, it could be something small, but something small, that simple gesture, that thing that lets people know that you're thinking about them, that can be something that sticks with somebody for a long time. So in order to help us be kind, I made an acronym that you can remember in case you're ever finding it hard to be kind. I think there should be a slide for it. Okay, this was like my first draft, so I think I have a better one, I think. Thank you, Riley, thank you. All right. And just in case you're asking yourself when it would be hard to be kind, or why we need an acronym, just think about the last time that somebody changed the toilet paper roll the way that you don't like it, all right? Or worse, they didn't change it at all, right? It's even more annoying. So let's look at kind. So starting with K, it's important to know what the people around us are going through. So we'll do a lot better at being kind if we know how we can best impact people with our kindness. So check in on people, see how they're really doing, and try to know in what ways you can best show them kindness. Next is I, and I stands for identify. And that is identifying what you can do to help. So some issues are bigger than we can fix. If our friend crashes their car, it would be really nice if we could go and buy them a new car. However, that might not be possible for all of us to do. When it comes to problems, I always like to figure out that solution that'll fix everything. And it can be really frustrating when the solution seems out of our grasp. But we're not called to fix every broken situation or to save the world. We are simply called to be kind. Identifying what we can do to help helps us see in what ways we can realistically show kindness. So maybe we can't buy a new car for a friend, but we can loan them our vehicle sometimes if they need it. Even if it may feel like our kindness, maybe we're not sure why we're doing it, maybe it feels like it's in vain. Identifying and thinking through ways we can help is so much better than us just getting frustrated and not doing anything. Next is N, and N stands for neighbor. But I want us to think of neighbor more as like a verb or an action. For some of us, it may be super easy to help someone financially or give things away for free. But what we must not overlook is that relational side of kindness. Consider the story of Zacchaeus in Luke chapter 19. Jesus could have simply ignored Zacchaeus up in the tree, or forgiven Zacchaeus of his sins and then just parted ways with him. But Jesus takes time to go to his house and to eat with him as well. Kindness is not simply shown through material things that we can give away. One of the biggest and most impactful ways that we can be kind is by giving of our time to other people. So that can be conversations, listening to people, applauding people when we see them accomplish something, etc., etc. These ways of being kind are free and enter into the realm of building relationships as well. Finally, D, maybe the most important part, is doing. Consider the quote we read again earlier, that the smallest act of kindness is worth more than the greatest intention. And while it may seem obvious, we need to allow our plans for kindness to come to fruition. Too often we can have a good idea, or maybe you've had it, maybe you felt it before, that you have this idea from God. Maybe he's calling you to talk to some person, or maybe to do something for someone you know, but then we don't do anything about it. Let's not be afraid to be spontaneous with our kindness and to go and do kindness. To close today, I just want us to think one more time of our story of the Good Samaritan. So the Samaritan, when he is leaving the man at the hotel, the inn. When he's leaving the man at the inn, just again to think about how he doesn't expect anything. This is somebody he's never met before, somebody he's found on the side of the road. Think about people, think about our most vulnerable people. Think about the people that you may run into that you don't know, but you can obviously tell need help. These are the most important people to think about kindness and goodness for. These are the people that Jesus was thinking about when he told the story of the Good Samaritan, or when he helped those people that he saw that needed help with healing or that needed their sins forgiven, whatever it was. Look for those people. Those are the people that need kindness the most. Remember, Jesus said, whatever you do for the least of these, you are doing for me as well. Let's pray. Dear God, we're just so thankful for your goodness. Again, as we're about to sing, all our lives you have been faithful. God, you give us the perfect example of how to be kind and good people. So God, we pray that as we just think about these things, as we look to grow this fruit in our lives, that we would just look to model the way you did it, God. We can't do it better than you have. So we pray that we would just get that inspiration from you, that we would look for those people that need kindness the most, God, and show that to them. God, again, we just thank you for this, and we pray that you'd be with us for the rest of the service. In your name, amen.
And we have two remaining songs, and just a little bit about the second one. It's a little bit more of an exciting feel. I hope some people have heard it before, because it's a really it's a good one. It's kind of got an Atlantic Celtic feel, so it's going to be good.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. It's all my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up till I lay my head, and I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. your voice. You have led me through the fire, darkest nights. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, and I will sing of the goodness of God. And your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, and I will sing of the goodness of God. And I will sing of the goodness of God. And I will sing of the goodness of God.
The praises now in the dawn. Your mercy with a song. Your people stand and sing for all your loving kindness. You carried us in faithfulness upon the paths of righteousness. Our gracious King, you've crowned us with your loving kindness. How great is your loving kindness, O God of goodness, our joy forever, to sing the glad refrain of grace that saved us, of sweet forgiveness. Oh, how great is your loving kindness. You lift us with the Father's hand, you shelter us with your command. What heart could fully comprehend your mercies endless? You lead us through the shadows deep, where doubts trace every step it seems. But as the darkness breaks, we'll see the morning promise. How great is your loving kindness, O God of goodness, our joy forever, to sing the glad refrain of grace that saved us, of sweet forgiveness. Oh, how great is your loving kindness. A life laid down to rescue us, with arms outstretched upon the cross. The greatest gift there ever was of loving kindness. A life laid down to rescue us, with arms outstretched upon the cross. The greatest gift there ever was of loving kindness. How great is your loving kindness, O God of goodness, our joy forever, to sing the glad refrain of grace that saved us, of sweet forgiveness. Oh, how joy forever, to sing the glad refrain of grace to save us, of sweet forgiveness. Oh, how great is your loving kindness.
God, your loving kindness is the greatest gift we could ever receive. God, just allow us to focus on that as we head over here and enter into our weeks today, God. We thank you for this and we praise you for this. In your name, amen. And may you go with the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit. God bless. Hey.